Park's very first ship in this unknown story of Western New York.
On a summer day, the Naval and Military Park is a popular place to be, where a cool lake breeze runs head-on into our rich history. And we have a group of hard-working, proud Buffalonians to thank for it.
It was a very formidable task.
Don Alessi is the park's chairman of the board, and he remembers how this all started with a phone call from former family court judge Anthony LaRusso, who had just returned from a family vacation.
And I went to visit a good friend of mine who was in the Marine Corps. He was a pilot.
That friend suggested they take a side trip to Wilmington, where they had just put in a naval park.
And he saw the USS North Carolina and was so impressed with its majesty that he thought it would be a good idea if we could have a naval park on the Buffalo waterfront.
It was an eye-opener for me. They took this very kind of desolate, quiet waterfront area, and they were really generating quite nicely what they were going to do.
He thought, why not Buffalo? He first contacted Mayor Stan Mikowski, who committed a plot of land. Then Congressman Hank Nowak, who pulled together $1.5 million in federal funding. And at that point, LaRusso sent a letter to the Navy to inquire about a ship. He had a particular interest in the story of the Sullivan brothers, who were killed when the Japanese sunk the USS Juneau.
I knew that there was a ship named after the Sullivans. I did not know where it went. Was it still active? They write back. It's available. It's in the U.S. Naval Yard, and it's in Philadelphia.
And the next step, getting it here from there. So the judge put together a team of volunteers made up of Buffalo firefighters, police officers, public works employees, all who either had Navy or sailing experience. So that group then boarded a Greyhound bus bound for Buffalo's future. First stop, Philadelphia.
While they were there, the person that was in charge of the ships said, "Would you fellas be interested in a cruiser?"
That cruiser turned out to be the Little Rock. They wanted it, but had to take a second trip back. But on June 29, 1977, 2 seagoing tugs and 15 volunteer crewmen began their journey of 2,180 nautical miles, towing the 376-foot, 2,050-ton the Sullivans up the North Atlantic into the St. Lawrence, and then they hit their first snag.
They got into Lake Ontario, and they were stopped by the government of Ontario to be in, catch this, in violation of the Rush-Bagot Treaty.
A treaty from just after the War of 1812, declaring no military vessels in Canadian waters. They had to call in another favor from Washington to get clearance for both that trip as well as when they came back with the Little Rock. But the Little Rock presented another issue.
They couldn't get through the Welland Canal because the ship was too large.
They had to cut down the superstructure. Finally, they made it back home, and they parked her right alongside the Sullivans and welded the mast back in place. With the superstructure intact, the 2 former warships became an immediate centerpiece on our waterfront, and the efforts to get them there, another interesting chapter of the unknown stories of Western New York.
Great stuff, Pete.